I've lived long enough to know that silence can be louder than shouting. When you've worked your whole life, raised a son alone, and built something out of pure grit, you start to believe respect is the one thing you've earned for good. But that illusion shattered the night my son brought his new bride home. Her name was Emily, sharp-tongued, polished, and dripping with the kind of confidence that only comes from never being told no. The moment she walked into my home, her eyes scanned everything like she was taking inventory. Old oak furniture, family photos on the wall, the smell of soup simmering on the stove. She smiled politely, but her expression said quaint. My son, Aaron, stood proudly beside her. He looked so happy that I forced my own smile wider, even though something inside me whispered, she's not here for him. She's here for what she thinks he'll become. Aaron introduced her quickly, his voice carrying that nervous edge I'd heard only once before, when he told me he was dropping out of med school. Dad, this is Emily. Emily, this is my father. She extended her hand like a queen, offering mercy. Pleasure to meet you, Mr. Thompson, she said. Aaron's told me so much about this place. This place, not home. That small detail told me more than her designer dress or diamond earrings ever could. Dinner was tense. Emily scrolled through her phone between bites, occasionally glancing up to ask questions like, "So, Mr. Thompson, what do you do now that you're retired? Gardening? Or something to keep busy?" I chuckled softly. "You could say that," I replied. "Truth is, I've been managing a small investment company for years, quietly, privately, without fanfare. But I wasn't about to explain that to someone measuring worth by car brands and watch logos. Aaron caught my eye. Dad still runs that recovery foundation, he said quickly. It's kind of his life's work. Emily's eyebrows rose. Oh, that little rehab thing. She said it like she was talking about a lemonade stand. My knuckles went white around the fork, but I stayed silent. Later that night, after they left, I sat alone in my living room, the ticking clock echoing in the quiet. It had been years since I felt that particular sting, humiliation wrapped in politeness. But I reminded myself, pride is expensive, and patience always pays interest. Over the next few months, I saw less and less of Aaron. Whenever I called, Emily answered. "Oh, Aaron's busy," she'd say, or "he's out with clients." When he did come by, he wore new suits and spoke in phrases that didn't sound like him anymore. "Dad, you wouldn't understand how the business world works now." I'd smile and say, "Maybe not, but human nature hasn't changed." He didn't like that. The real turning point came 6 months later, when Aaron and Emily invited me to dinner at their new house. New house was putting it lightly. It was a mansion with marble floors and a chandelier bigger than my entire dining table. Emily greeted me in a silk dress and said, "So glad you could make it, Mr. Thompson. We wanted you to see how well we're doing." Her words were coated in sugar, but they had the bite of glass. At dinner, Aaron raised a glass. "To new beginnings," he said. Emily leaned in and added with a smirk, "and to leaving old habits and old ways behind." Everyone laughed, except me. I just looked at my son. He avoided my gaze. When dessert came, Emily asked, "Mr. Thompson, have you ever thought about retiring from that little nonprofit thing? It must be exhausting at your age." I replied, "No, I still find meaning in it. Helping people rebuild their lives never gets old." She laughed lightly. "Oh, that's sweet. But Aaron and I believe in scaling success, not patching up failures." That was it. That single sentence, scaling success, not patching up failures, was the moment I realized my son was lost. Completely and utterly lost. I didn't argue. I just looked at them and said, "Enjoy your success, kids. Just remember, the higher you climb without roots, the harder the fall." Emily rolled her eyes. Aaron frowned like a boy scolded in front of friends. I left without finishing dessert. 2 weeks later, the headlines started coming out. Aaron Thompson's startup accused of investor fraud. Emily Thompson implicated in embezzlement scheme. Apparently, their success had been funded by creative accounting, and when investors demanded answers, Emily vanished from public view. Aaron called me one night, voice shaking. "Dad, I don't know what to do." She left. The money's gone. They're coming after me. I listened quietly, letting the weight of silence hang. Then I asked one simple question. Do you remember what you said about patching up failures? He started crying. Dad, please. I need your help. That night, I opened a drawer in my study and pulled out a folder I'd kept for years. Proof of my own quiet investments, the ones Emily had mocked as small time. Over $27 million in diversified assets, built slowly, honestly, and quietly. I never flaunted it because I didn't need to. The next morning, I visited Aaron. He looked like a ghost of himself, unshaven, hollow-eyed, and desperate. I placed a folder on the table. This, I said softly, is what patience builds. No shortcuts, no scams. Real wealth isn't about showing off. It's about sleeping peacefully at night. He broke down completely. Later that week, we went together to the authorities. Aaron cooperated, made his statements, and began paying back what he could. Emily, however, disappeared overseas. She'd left behind a trail of debts, fake accounts, and a husband who finally understood the difference between money and value. Months passed. Aaron moved back into my house for a while. We spent evenings talking, not about success, but about mistakes, forgiveness, and how easy it is to lose yourself trying to impress people who don't care. One night, as I poured us both tea, he said quietly, Dad, I used to think you were small-minded. Now I realize you were the only one who actually understood what matters. I smiled. That's the funny thing about age, son. You don't get smarter. You just stop believing every lie the world sells you. But I wasn't done yet. I had one final lesson for Emily. I knew she was hiding in a resort town overseas, using what was left of their stolen money. Through legal channels, I quietly acquired the property she'd been staying in, her safe house. A month later, the local papers reported that the villa had been sold to a Mr. Thompson. She found out the hard way when she received an eviction notice signed by me. I didn't need revenge, just closure, and that paper was all it took. Aaron eventually rebuilt his life, this time with humility. He rejoined my foundation, helping real people recover from addiction and broken dreams. And every time I watch him shake someone's hand, I see the man he could have been all along, before pride and greed blinded him. As for me, I still live in the same modest home, still cook the same soup, still watch the same clock tick on the wall. But now, when I look at the framed photo of Aaron as a little boy, I don't feel bitterness. I feel gratitude. Because sometimes you have to lose everything fake before you can appreciate what's real. Sarah's words hung in the air like smoke after a gunshot. You're not thinking clearly. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time I didn't see my daughter-in-law. I saw a predator cornered by her own arrogance. Calmly, I folded the document on the table. You should go home, Sarah, I said quietly. We can talk about this when David calls me. Her lips tightened. If that's what you want. She left the house without another word, her heels clicking against the tile like a ticking clock. That night, I barely slept. Every creak of the old house sounded like Margaret's footsteps. I sat in her old armchair, clutching the photo of our wedding day. I whispered to her, You'd have seen through her faster than I did, Maggie. By morning, I made my decision. It was time to stop being the grieving widower she thought I was, and start being the forensic accountant who'd put away men who thought they were smarter than everyone else. I set up small voice recorders in the living room, kitchen, and office. Hidden, discreet. The kind of tech the Bureau used 20 years ago, still effective as ever. Then, I called Jack again. She's escalating, I said. Try to get me to sign again. Mention debts, people David owes money to. Jack exhaled sharply. That confirms it. Harold, she's running a high-level exploitation play. They usually use forged documents to prove the debts. Don't confront her directly again. Let her dig her own grave. I smiled faintly. Oh, don't worry. I'm giving her the shovel. 3 days later, Sarah showed up at my door holding a file folder. She was wearing her realtor's blazer, the one she saved for professional manipulations. Harold, we need to talk, she said, voice clipped and firm. I didn't want to tell you this, but David's situation has gotten worse. He's gone, Harold. Gone where? Dead. The word hit me like a freight train, but not for the reason she expected. Because just yesterday, I had seen David's Instagram post, him smiling on a beach in Nassau, drink in hand, caption paradise with my girl. I leaned against the doorframe. Dead, I repeated softly. Her eyes glistened with fake tears. There was an accident while traveling. The authorities contacted me first. They said the body will take a while to bring home. I almost admired her confidence. Did you tell the police you were his wife? I asked. Yes, of course. Who else would they tell? I nodded. That makes sense. She mistook my calm for shock and pushed her luck. I'll handle the funeral arrangements. We should use the life insurance to cover everything. And, of course, we'll need access to his inheritance accounts. There was the play. She was cashing in on my imaginary grief. I placed a trembling hand on the table. Sarah, I can't think straight right now. Please handle whatever needs to be handled. Her face lit up with relief. Of course, Harold. You could trust me. She didn't realize my phone, lying face down beside me, was recording everything. Over the next 48 hours, Sarah began staging an entire funeral. She contacted neighbors, church friends, even printed fake memorial cards with David's picture pulled from social media. People came by with flowers and casseroles. Every condolence that poured through the door made my blood boil. I went along, played the part, shuffling around in my cardigan, muttering thank yous, letting her think she'd broken me. But behind the scenes, I was building a case file thicker than the Denver phone book. Every transaction, every message, every fraudulent donation she collected for David's memorial expenses. She had even set up a GoFundMe page with my photo in it, claiming Harold Mitchell's heart can't take the loss of his only son. Help him stay in assisted living while we arrange his care. That was her mistake. The campaign linked directly to her personal bank account. Jack was stunned when I sent him the screenshots. Harold, this isn't just exploitation. This is full-on fraud, identity theft, and wire fraud. I know, I said. And she's still walking into my house every morning like she owns it. Day 3 arrived. The day she'd later tell me I had to be out of my own home. She showed up with 2 men I'd never seen before. Movers, supposedly. Boxes in hand. Clipboard ready. Sarah, what is this? I asked, feigning confusion. Oh, Harold, she said, putting on her sweetest tone. I told you yesterday. We're moving you into the assisted living home in Boulder. It's all arranged. No, you didn't. She sighed. You must have forgotten again. It's for the best. You can't stay here alone anymore. One of the movers, a large man with tattoos, started taking down the family portraits. Margaret's photo hit the floor, glass shattering. That was my breaking point. Put that down. My voice came out calm, too calm. Both men froze. Sarah tried to intervene. Harold, please don't make this harder than it needs to be. We already sold the house. You what? She lifted a stack of papers. Signed and finalized. I have power of attorney. Remember? I smiled slowly. That's funny, Sarah, because I never signed that document. Her expression faltered. I watched you sign. No, you forged it. I turned to the side table, pressed a small remote button hidden under a coaster. Across the room, the speakers crackled to life. If something happens to you, someone needs to be able to handle your affairs. David's too busy. He owes people money. Serious people. At your age, Harold, you could die any day. Her own voice echoed through the house. Crystal clear, time-stamped, undeniable. The color drained from her face. You were recording me? For 3 months, I said quietly. Every lie, every threat, every attempt to steal from me. I wanted to see how deep the rot went. The 2 movers exchanged a glance and slowly backed toward the door. Leave, I told them. They didn't need to be told twice. Sarah tried to recover. You can't prove any of this will hold up in court, she snapped. I stepped closer. That's where you're wrong. Because I worked for the FBI for 30 years. Fraud division. And I sent every piece of evidence to Detective Jack Williams this morning. The blood drained from her face. You what? I nodded toward the window. He's parked outside, waiting for me to call. As if on cue, a black sedan pulled into the driveway. Jack stepped out, flashing his badge before she could move. Sarah Mitchell, you're under arrest for multiple counts of fraud, elder exploitation, and identity theft. Sarah stumbled back. This is a mistake. David said. Jack cut her off. Funny you mentioned David. He's not dead. Right then, David stepped out of the passenger seat. I swear the world went silent for a moment. He looked thinner, older, guilt written all over his face. "Dad, I didn't know," he whispered. "She told me you were losing your mind, that she was helping you." I didn't speak. I just looked at him, the son I'd raised to be honest, now standing next to the woman who'd buried me in lies. Jack read Sarah her rights while she shouted every excuse in the book. I was protecting him. He wanted me to handle the money. This was all for David. None of it mattered. Within minutes, she was handcuffed and led to the car, screaming that I'd ruined her life. David stayed behind. We sat in silence for a long time, both of us staring at the floor. "Dad, I don't expect you to forgive me," he said finally. "She made me believe you were sick. I didn't even question it. I just went along with everything." I nodded slowly. "You chose not to see, David. That's worse." He started crying. "I lost Mom, and then you started pulling away. I thought she was helping us connect again. I didn't know she was." I stopped him. "You didn't want to know, but now you do." I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the sun was setting, the same light Margaret used to call gold hour. "She'd be disappointed," I said quietly. "Not because of what you did, but because you didn't trust your own father." He wiped his eyes. "I'll fix it, Dad. I'll make it right. I don't need your promises, son. I need your honesty." In the months that followed, Sarah took a plea deal. 5 years in prison for fraud and forgery. David tried to repair things, slowly. He moved back to Denver, started therapy, and began volunteering at the same church that had once believed his fake death story. As for me, I stayed in the house, repaired the broken frames, planted new roses in Margaret's garden. Sometimes when I sit on the porch at sunset, I hear her voice again, calm, steady, wise. "You did what was right, Harold. That's what matters." I take a sip of her favorite tea, look out at the yard, and whisper, "I know, Mag, but I wish you'd been here to see it." Because justice, when it finally came, didn't feel like victory. It felt like peace. And that's something Sarah Mitchell could never steal.